I've always been a fan of Monster Hunter, ever since I got that Monster Hunter 1 demo disc on the PlayStation 2. I didn't understand it and found it hard and annoying, but the designs captivated me like no other series really did, apart from Pokemon. Although I didn't get to play many of the game, World and Rise, they've been an absolute blast, and I couldn't not make a Monster Hunter as Pokemon series. If you want me to make more monsters as Pokemon, remember to give a like and subscribe for a rare chance to get a FAFO gem from me. Let's jump right in, but first a disclaimer, I chose a lot of monsters that I like and some suggestions, so there won't be many of the super popular monsters here. Okay, you've been warned, let's start the hunt.
One wrong step, and it's too late. The beast hears all, returns irate.
Rise brought so many good designs, there's another one in the video. Yokais mixed with monster design? Yes please. And the Goss Harag is my fave of them all. An Oni bear that uses ice powers to make frozen swords? I don't think you could make a cooler description for something if you tried. My idea for this one was to go kind of towards a more Gen 2 look for Harag. You'll notice a berry Ursa ring look to it. The biggest challenge with translating the design to Pokemon is the details. These monsters are so detailed you need to polish off a few of them, but I wanted to keep the facial shape, that big bushy fur and the cool spiky knuckles, really show that this thing means business. I wanted to give it this expression of it almost being kind of shocked that anyone would dare approach it. I could totally see this thing throwing down against Beartic in the Arctic and just absolutely smashing Beartic's stupid icy beard. In terms of typing, I feel like every fanged beast could have the fighting type, but I decided on ice and ground, as the Goss Harag is known for earth-shakingly powerful strength, capable of creating shockwaves, so what better idea for it than giving it stab earthquakes? Harag, the frozen blade Pokemon, are ground and ice type. Harag live in frosty caves in snowy environments. It trudges out and will hunt down prey, even freezing it to keep for later. It will even hunt down Barioth to moderate success. It has a special liquid made from inhaling the cool air that allows it to create frozen blades on its arm. Their bodies are well insulated to stop any lasting effects from the cold of the blade. Their ability to control the density of the blade allows them to even hurl them great distances at far-off prey. Because of their highly territorial nature, staying away from caves in the snow is highly recommended, especially if surrounded by frozen Pokemon. Harag has a new ability called Frostblade, where slicing attacks have a small chance to freeze. This effect increases the lower an opponent's health is.
Gaze up at the sky in fear. The crimson comet draws near.
A contender for the Goss Harag throne of awesome description, here's a dragon that instead of wings has literal jet engines and is capable of blasting around the arena faster than your eyes can follow. The Valstrax is an amazing design, and to turn it into a Pokemon was going to be a challenge as those wings are so integral to the design. But what to do about that? I started with a tiny baby sketch to get the overall shape down. I decided the wings should be this sort of jagged assortment that looks a bit like a combination of an engine and wings. Because of a comment suggesting Valstrax could fly using infinite energy, I had a great idea for it to be this sort of rainbow energy pouring out of the engines, and this one would definitely be a legendary for sure. The body of Valstrax has to be rather aerodynamic, so I made it as skinny and streamlined as possible, save for a few spiky areas and the tails. The head of Valstrax I made so that it'd look a bit Charizard-esque and get that full Pokemon feel going for it. For colours I kept it to a lighter blue and darker blues for the other parts of it, just so the body wasn't full monochrome. In the end I added some shards coming off the infinite energy booster so it looked like it was dynamically launching itself off. Valstrax, the infinite engine Pokemon, a dragon and flying type. Valstrax is a legendary Pokemon rarely seen below the clouds. It flies through our atmosphere like a jet engine using the mysterious power known as infinite energy. The two wing-like structures that expel this energy can be moved on a swivel, allowing Valstrax to move swiftly in any direction, but also blast this energy at foes who would anger it. As Valstrax flies, they tuck their body in and are built to be able to speed through the sky faster than an any-jet. It has inspired many who have seen it to try and invent a plane that could outspeed Valstrax, but none have succeeded in such a venture. Valstrax has a new ability called Infinity Engine, where it boosts speeds upon entering the battlefield, and a chance whenever flying type attacks hit the enemy. Monster Hunter World had some fun designs that pushed for an even greater realism than before, but the Paolumu was just a treasure in all aspects. A floating rat with one of the best armor sets in the game? Sign me up. I wanted to play up the aspect of Paolumu's inflating its neck pouch in the artwork, so it's got this sort of dynamic pose of it floating along with it, almost cradling around the neck. The actual design of Paolumu isn't super detailed, so it worked well to translate almost literally into a Pokemon. I gave it very simplified toes and fingers with tiny little talons on the toes, to show that if anything, Paolumu would be more of a bludgeoning Pokemon and just a defensive Pokemon overall. I chose normal and flying for the typing here. Devs could have had dragon, but I honestly think that this would work as a final stage of a starting regional rodent, or the third stage of my Astaro Pokemon Parashug. In the end I didn't change too much, but gosh, it just looks real fluffy and huggable. Paolumu, the Puff Pokemon, a normal and flying type. Paolumu are a strange Pokemon said to be related to Raticate due to their large in sizes and general skull structure. Paolumu has evolved to be able to fly using large fluffy wings that catch warm rising winds from deep canyons. If it needs to hover though, it has a specialized neck pouch capable of taking in air and becoming a large balloon-like pouch. It is quite kind unless provoked, floating around listlessly, even falling asleep like this, and being carried away by the wind. When it is enraged, the wind pouch can have many uses, firing blasts of pressurized air and even using it for quick dodges against attacks. Paolumu have the abilities Fluffy and Wind Rider.
Don't fall for the charm of its shining white gown, for it will tear you up before taking you down.
I feel like if I let myself, I'd just say every design in this video is awesome. I mean, a saber-toothed tiger dragon that controls the icy storms? That's another design just right up my alley. For this design, I used a combo of the regular Barioth and the Frostfang version in all of its fluffy glory. I like the idea of the Barioth in the Pokemon setting being both a scary hunter, but also a bit more playful, like the Barioth from Monster Hunter stories. So it's posed as one where it's sitting down almost like a dog being told to sit. Kind of opposing the big sharp saber fangs and all the spikes lining its body, as well as the weird jagged fondue fork it has. I can't help but feel like encountering this Pokemon in-game would actually be horrifying, but I guess encountering any of the monsters here would be a shocking experience. They all look like they would devour you whole. Blizziath, the Frost-Tooth Pokemon, a dragon and ice type. If you ever find yourself in a frozen tundra, beware Blizziath, which is said to stalk prey under the cover of blizzards and then strike down with blinding speeds. Blizziath is unaffected by the cold thanks to its heavy fur and cold armoured plates adorning their body. Attacks from Blizziath have a strange effect that chills to the bone and causes people and Pokemon to freeze up. At that point it is too late and Blizziath is not far behind. Tame Blizziath are loyal creatures that can be employed as riding and rescuing Pokemon in the deepest and coldest regions. Blizziath's abilities are Slush Rush and Marvel Scale. the goodest bad dog of all time. Odogaron is next, and this one I wanted to do partly because I like Odogaron, but also because it felt like a good challenge to try and translate it into a Pokemon. I mean, the Odogaron looks like it's just made of raw meat and sadness, but it does have plenty of inspirations behind it. The starting sketch started honestly rather terrifying, so I simplified the eyes and their placement a bit as well as the teeth, but I mainly wanted to keep a simplified version of their second set of claws on the legs, and the weird jagged tail they have, almost going for an Aztec Macuahue. I don't know if I spelled that right, but let's go with that. I think the closest Pokemon I could attribute this to would be Mega Houndoom in terms of both ferocity and edginess. And by edginess I mean literally this thing has so many jagged points it'd be a walking cut hazard. But hey, if you're brave enough to pet the doggy, go ahead. I kept this one to pure dark type as most other types didn't really fit for a monster that had just used corpses as weapons and just wants to eat constantly. Caragon, the Veracity Pokemon, a dark type. Caragon live exclusively in areas that are filled to the brim with prey. It rarely can get its fill, and sometimes will just attack prey just to stock up on extra food. It will eat even rotten food. It isn't picky. Caragon's entire body is covered in razor-sharp talons made of hardened bone that cause profuse bleeding if a target is even grazed by an attack. Because of this, Caragon has solidified itself as an apex predator. When enraged, it rapidly burns off any energy it gained from eating to move faster and become even deadlier. After, however, it becomes incredibly sluggish and must scavenge for food. Caragon's abilities are gluttony and sharpness.
Don't get pushed out of the ring. For the abyss awaits.
Another one of my favourite Rise monsters is the Tetranadon, a sumo platypus that starts out small and then gets thick with a few extra C's. It's such a fun design that somehow translates really well as like a believable design, but also into a Pokemon. I only did the thick form in this, but I feel like it'd have a form change mechanic where it's a smaller lad without the sumo pose and belly, but for now we're just going to stick to thick. I kept for the most part the spiky bits on the head and shell as the largest parts of the detail, as I thought the idea of it using this as camouflage on riverbanks for prey to get in close in small form would be fun. The sumo aspect of it justified the fighting type and the pose as well, and I tossed up between grass and water type. Grass due to it almost having mossy fur, but I think that is literally just green coloured fur, maybe caked in algae, so I picked water type as it does collect water and spit it up, and is also a riverside amphibious creature. I ended up adding a band to the belly for an almost sumo outfit theme and to give it a bit more interest to the empty space there. Tetryumo, the sumo Pokemon, a water and fighting type. Tetryumo occupy large rivers where they lie in wait for prey to come into their territory. When lying down, they resemble a rocky mound upon the shore, the perfect camouflage. Once it devours its prey, it takes everything else that went into its mouth with it, rocks, dirt, gravel and water along with the prey. This causes Tetryumo to swell up, but doesn't affect the Pokemon. Instead, it becomes incredibly heavy and stronger, an almost unmovable force. It fights by using crushing leaps and heavy shoves. From its hands, it can easily shatter boulders. Once the swelling goes down, it returns to its hiding spot. Tetryumo has a new ability called Gulp Down, where after defeating a Pokemon, this Pokemon changes form, doubling its weight, lowering speed but increasing attack. This form reverts after 5 turns in battle of not defeating another Pokemon.
For it's the top player, and the world is its stage.
If you've been following the streams, you'd have seen these last two designs before. The Rajang is one of those highly memed monkeys because it's just so angry, and just such a Dragon Ball reference. It's such a wild design. Not to mention it just straight up walks up to Kieran's and tears off the horns and just has a feast on it just so it can get more angry. It's an unstoppable rage machine. The Donkey Kong of Monster Hunter himself, let's Pokify the Rajang. I wanted for this to have a Rillaboom sort of pose to it, as they are gorillas united, but Rajangri would be a bit more of a mandrill to its inspo. with a longer face and a slightly more colourful face as well. Longer teeth but smaller mane. I tried balancing the design more towards Pokemon proportions than Monster Hunter proportions. It's just a severely unimpressed looking ape with an anger issue, and I see no problem with this. For colours, I wanted to give the body a bit more of a true to Rajang colour, but the face more red to stand out with some bright red patterning I could use when he transforms. The white parts also to give a bit more detail as well to separate a bit from Rillaboom. And don't worry, we're going to see this creature literally go ape. Rajangri, the Raging Beast Pokemon, a dark and fighting type. Rajangri live on top of mountains where they hunt electrically charged prey. They devour specifically the horns that they store the energy in a specialized organ till they really need it. Rather dopey and easily tricked, they still should not be underestimated. In battle they move fast and hit hard with muscle-backed wallops that break bones. This muscle also helps them clamber around environments with a relative ease. If a Rajangri is cornered and weak, that's when it unleashes its true power, releasing the energy that's stored within in a massive, powerful blast. Rajangri has a new ability called Rage Mode, where upon hitting half health or being hit or using an electric type move, Rajangri transforms. I wanted to call back the pose it has in its actual Art of the Fury mode, but my version of Raging Rajangri starts to glow in various other places. Mainly the horns and the palms start to glow with static energy, where a punch or a ram attack would surely discharge a massive amount of electricity. The markings before now glow with that Super Saiyan yellow and gets a bit of a Pikachu's tail from that funny little nubbin it had before. In this form it gains the electric type, swapping out the dark type, although I feel like it could have replaced the fighting type too, as it's just as dark and foul playing as well. In terms of colours, it's a bit lighter than normal Rajangri in all aspects, even the hair. You just know this thing is going to stand there and scream the Kamehameha for way too long. Rajangri, Rage form, the Raging Beast Pokemon, an electric and fighting type. Upon entering Rage form, Rajangri unleashes a nova of electricity and charges its mane with power, which glows a bright yellow and crackles with electricity. The palms of Rajangri's hands and horns glow with charged energy, causing a large shock to anything touching it. It moves about with blinding speeds that not even Rajangri can sometimes control, leading to it slamming into stones, destroying them fully. While it is in control of its body, the collateral damage is unintended, but Rajangri cares not. It only reverts once fainted or its store of energy runs out. A defeated foe won't stop Rajangri. Rajangri in this form has the ability Electric Burst, which damages all Pokemon upon transformation. So that's all the monsters I've done and hunted. Remember to comment your thoughts down below and if you'd like to see a part 2. There's so many monsters and even just regular creatures in Monster Hunter, not to mention all the companion creatures that could become Pokemon, like, just 20 regions just in itself there. Now excuse me while I go play Monster Hunter Rise again and wait for Monster Hunter World 2. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next time.